Good afternoon. Rishi Sunak has become the first leadership contender to secure the public support of 100 Tory MPs. That is the number needed to enter the race to be the next Conservative leader and Prime Minister. But he's yet to announce publicly whether he will bid for the top job after losing to Liz Truss last month. Meanwhile, Boris Johnson has flown home from a Caribbean holiday as his supporters claim that he now also has 100 MPs backing him, although others have said this is hogwash. So far, Penny Mordaunt is the only contender to have officially launched a campaign. Our political correspondent Damien Grammaticus has more.
Are you running for leadership?
He was tight-lipped this morning, but Rishi Sunak clearly has a well of support among Conservative MPs. More than 100 now publicly backing him. And that sets up the extraordinary possibility he could face off against the man he helped bring down. Boris Johnson flying back from a Caribbean holiday for a possible political comeback. It's just over 4 months since Mr Johnson faced a revolt by his own MPs and a confidence vote.
The vote in favour of having confidence in Boris Johnson as leader was 211 votes, and the vote against was 148 votes.
More than 40% of his MPs had no confidence in him then. Dozens then resigned from his government. But some now say they want him to return.
We've seen in the last few days is some of the MPs who resigned, some of the MPs who called for Boris to go at the start of the summer have now said that they would like to see him put himself forward. They've admitted that they were wrong, and I know that there are many others waiting to hear on if he makes a decision to run before they go public.
Thank you very much for coming.
Those who want him back remember this: Boris Johnson is a vote winner. Many Tory MPs haven't forgotten what followed: lockdown parties that broke the law. Parliament will soon begin hearings into whether Mr Johnson lied about this. It's why the man who was his deputy Prime Minister is backing Rishi Sunak.
I think the country needs a Prime Minister that is focused 100% on them. And I just don't see as a practical matter that can be Boris if he's then dealing with all of those issues. And I say that as someone who would love to see Boris return to frontline politics. I think he can, but I don't think he can until he's addressed those issues.
The first candidate to declare she was running was Penny Mordaunt last night, but she has far fewer public declarations of support.
I'm backing Penny because she's the candidate, I think, that can not only just bring the Conservative Party and Parliament together, but actually the whole country. She's got a proven track record working across 8 departments in her 12 years in Parliament.
This was Boris Johnson in July. To the right, Rishi Sunak. Later that day, Mr Sunak resigned as Chancellor, saying people needed competent, serious government. 3 days later, Mr Johnson was out of office. So the choice facing Tory MPs may come down to 2 men with a bitter history or an untested alternative compromise candidate. Damien Grammaticus, BBC News.
Well, what do voters make of the turbulent events in Westminster? Jessica Lane has been talking to people in the Conservative constituency of Penistone and Stocksbridge in South Yorkshire to find out.
As MPs are back in their constituencies this weekend, many will find out if what's happening in Westminster is the talk of their town.
I think that we've lost faith in all the politicians, Labour or Conservative, and I think it's time that we need to get a bit more stance within the country again.
Bit of stability back.
Yeah. I've been in Spain last week on holiday, and all the Spanish people and German people keep saying, what's wrong with your country?
Well, we've been talking nothing else for the last few days.
It is the backstabbing, and that's the problem.
This constituency has this rural market town of Penistone and the industrial steelworks in Stocksbridge nearby. Historically Labour, it turned Conservative in 2019. The local MP, Miriam Cates, says she has huge admiration for Boris Johnson, but she's backing Rishi Sunak for leader. But some business owners say they're more bothered about getting support soon.
The main thing is energy bills at the moment. That's what's crippling us. Our quarterly has gone up from £270 to £990 for 3 months. For a little shop like this, it's difficult.
Is that electric and gas?
Just electric. We've got no gas, so it's crippling us big time. So stuff like that needs sorting out.
Whatever does happen over the next few days, it's certainly giving people a topic to chew over here. Jessica Lane, BBC News in Penistone.
Well, back in Westminster, currently the BBC estimates 186 out of 357 Tory MPs have gone public with their support. As you heard, Rishi Sunak has passed the key threshold of 100 backers. Boris Johnson has 50 and Penny Mordaunt 22. It is worth pointing out that these are the numbers that the BBC can verify. Others may have different information. Well, to help us with this, I'm joined by our political correspondent, Damien Grammatica. So, Damien, those are the public numbers of MPs declaring their support. What are people saying unofficially? And crucially, when will we know?
Well, as you were saying a minute or two ago, Boris Johnson's camp have been suggesting that they think he has 100 backers. The official count that we have from public declarations, that much lower figure of about 50. What is going on behind the scenes there? Boris Johnson, we know, is canvassing, is calling people, seeing who will support him today. But some of the others, the Sunak camp, really pouring cold water on that number that the Johnson camp have, 100. They say, show us your numbers, show us your names, challenging them to put up, because they know that they have more than 100 public backers for Mr Sunak. So there's this whole sort of attempt at the minute to try to nail down support. Part of it is about perception, is about people, want to make sure the Johnson camp want to be shown to be in this race. But it is Monday morning is the crucial time when they need those nominations on paper, minimum of 100.
Damien, many thanks. A 12-year-old boy has died after a wall collapsed at a house in Essex. Emergency services were called to the property in Clacton last night after a garage attached to a house collapsed. A man in his 30s was pulled from the rubble with an arm injury. Avanti West Coast rail services have been disrupted throughout the day due to strike action by train managers. Only one train per hour was scheduled to run from London to Manchester, Liverpool and Glasgow. The RMT union says the strike is the culmination of months of neglect. There have been some extraordinary scenes at China's ruling Communist Party Congress, with the former leader Hu Jintao being led out of the closing ceremony in Beijing. Mr. Hu was sitting beside President Xi Jinping when he was approached by officials who took him by the arm and led him away. It's not clear what was behind the move, which took place during what's usually a highly choreographed event. Now, how do you respond when your best friend randomly decides to call time on your lifelong friendship? Well, that's the plot of the film The Banshees of Inisherin, set in the 1920s on a fictional remote island off the coast of Ireland. Our entertainment correspondent Lizo Mazimba has been talking to its stars Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson.
Have you been round?
Dark and quirky.
What the hell's going on with you and me brother?
He's dull, Siobhan.
But he's always been dull.
Humorous and compelling.
You're behaving awful unusual.
The film tells the story of a lifelong friendship that suddenly ends.
People have responded to it in such a positive way, and it's meant something to the people that I've spoken to that have seen it. There's been a kind of a relatability or personalisation of this film in regard to their own lives and their own experience of whether it's friendship loss or isolation had to be dealt with. So it means a lot. It's lovely.
Yeah, breaking up and all that kind of stuff is like we've all had a bit of it. It's hitting home with people in a way that's quite moving and stuff. You just kind of feel, wow, this is one that has worked the way it should.
Do you know who we remember for how nice they was in the 17th century? Who? Absolutely no one. Yet we all remember the music of the time. Everyone to a man knows Mozart's name.
I don't, so there goes that theory.
One of the central themes is how much people should sacrifice in order to create meaningful art, with both actors drawing on their own experiences.
Through the years, I've missed things. I've missed funerals of people who meant a lot to me. Yeah. I missed, I have 2 children. I missed the birth of one. I was there for the birth of another one, but only because I wasn't gainfully employed at that time, thank God. So at least I was there for one of my boys being born. But you miss really important, fundamentally important moments.
At one stage, I was nearly 7 months away over the year in 3 different jobs. It's too much for my kids. It was breaking my heart to be there. And I said, there's a certain level, I'm missing too much. So it's a constant line you're trying to walk.
How gratified are you to be talked about as Oscar contenders?
If you got a nomination or something like that and I did, we'd have a laugh with it.
We would.
We would have a laugh with it. And then it'd be business as usual, do you know what I mean? And then it'd be business as usual.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
No, but it'd be great.
I'd be a laugh, yeah. I want it, is what he's saying. I want it. When do we find out?
Well, Oscar nominations are still 3 months away, but when they are announced, many expect to see the names Gleeson and Farrell on that list. Lisa Mzimba, BBC News.
We are back with the late news at 10 past 10. Now on BBC One, it's time for the news where you are. Bye-bye.